They fined me $450 for unauthorized exterior lighting, a single porch bulb I'd replaced myself after waiting 16 days for their maintenance vendor. When I opened the envelope, the citation was stapled to a threat of lien, dated 9:42 p.m., and signed by a man who didn't even live in our subdivision. Welcome to Real Life HOA. I'm Mark Danner, 41, structural inspector out of Denton County, Texas. If you're new here, I tell true-to-life HOA stories, the kind that teach us how to fight back without breaking the law. Take a second to subscribe and tell me where you're watching from. I always picture the front porches behind those comments. I bought this place 5 years ago, right after my wife, Erin, passed. The house was small, one story, a patch of Bermuda grass I kept for her. She'd wanted our daughter to grow up somewhere steady. I thought HOA meant order. I was wrong. Their first letter came before we even unpacked. A $75 orientation fee and a rulebook thicker than the home's closing folder. When the new president, Ron Whittle, took over, he brought with him a private security contractor. 2 men with HOA security stitched on green polos, riding golf carts with sirens that looked illegal but technically weren't. They'd circle at midnight, flash lights at kids walking home. I complained once. Ron smirked and said, "If you've got nothing to hide, you'll love our patrols." I ignored most of it until the night they stopped my neighbor, Rosa, for trespassing in her own yard. She called me crying because her grandkids saw a flashlight in their bedroom window. That's when I started saving every notice, every inspection sheet. My job had taught me that paper and timing win more fights than fists. The next week, I received a letter marked urgent. It said my exterior security camera, the one pointed at my driveway, violated Article 12.4b. I checked the bylaws. The section didn't even exist. When I called the office, the receptionist transferred me straight to voicemail. 2 days later, a wellness check showed up at my door, same 2 guards, asking if I felt safe. I smiled, handed them a printed sign, trespass warning. Per Texas Penal Code 403005, consent revoked. They left, muttering. I knew they'd report it to Ron. The following Monday, a certified letter landed in my mailbox. Notice of hearing, potential violation pattern. That phrase, violation pattern, felt engineered to sound criminal. They wanted $200 in cumulative fines or suspension of community privileges. My daughter asked if we'd still be able to use the pool that summer. I told her yes, but my throat tightened because I wasn't sure. That night, I sat at the kitchen table with 3 binders, property records, HOA correspondence, and statutes. I highlighted one phrase under the Texas Property Code, Par 209.006. Notice of violation must state the provision violated and the action required to cure. None of theirs did. I took photos, timestamped them, and stored everything in cloud backup. Knowledge nugget number 1. In Texas, if an HOA fails to specify the exact rule violated and the corrective action, the fine is void on arrival, unenforceable in court. By week's end, I'd collected 6 different letters, all citing imaginary articles. I drove to the county clerk's office, asked for the original recorded CCRs. The clerk slid a dusty folder under glass, recorded 1998, last amendment 2011. No mention of cameras, bulbs, or private patrols. That's when a plan started forming. Ron announced a security review meeting for April 9th at 7 p.m. He posted it on the bulletin board with bold print, closed to non-board residents. That was illegal too. I circled the date. Rosa brought coffee that night, whispered, "They fined me for my flagpole. Said it's you. Unauthorized display." "It's the American flag, Mark." She laughed, small and sad. "Maybe you can inspect their souls." I told her quietly, "First, I'm inspecting their paperwork." A week later, I requested the association's annual financials under Section 20905. The treasurer emailed back, "Those records are confidential." They weren't. I printed that reply and added it to the binder. Every HOA collapse I'd ever seen started the same way: overreach plus arrogance. They'd just given me both. By the second week of April, I had enough documentation to make a city inspector blush. Every citation, every timestamp, even Ron's smug email about non-compliant vegetation, meaning my neighbor's rosebush, was tabbed and cross-referenced. Still, none of it meant anything without sunlight. I needed someone who knew the difference between an HOA regulation and an enforceable covenant. I called my old friend Leonard Pike, a municipal attorney with cuffs always stained in blue ink from signing too many exhibits. He answered with his usual cough laugh. "Mark, you sound like a man who just discovered democracy doesn't reach cul-de-sacs." "Not democracy," I said. "Paperwork." We met that afternoon at a diner off Highway 377. Leonard flipped through my binder like it was a crime scene. "They're fining you under phantom sections. That's selective enforcement. Get me their insurance carrier and the registered agent for service. You'll need both when this turns." I asked what he meant by turns. He tapped the table. "You'll see, HOA presidents always forget the state exists above them." That night I filed an open records request with the city for the HOA's security contract. Under Texas Government Code 4552, if they were using public roads or collecting private security fees, they had to register. When the file came back 2 days later, I nearly laughed. HOA Security LLC wasn't licensed under the state's Private Security Act. No insurance, no training roster, no bond. I printed it, 3 copies, I called Leonard. He said, "Document it, don't chase it. Let them hang themselves on their own rope." Halfway through that week, I posted a short video update to my channel. If you've ever had your HOA act like a private police department, comment below. Are you firmly anti-HOA, or have you faced one yourself? Drop one tactic you'd tell others to stand up without crossing the line. The comments section exploded overnight. People shared stories of $500 fines for mailbox paint, threats over garden gnomes, even one man fined for flying a POW flag. I read every comment. Each one reminded me this wasn't just my battle. By Friday, the HOA escalated. They claimed my inspection badge was misused and sent another certified letter, notice of trespass warning, effective immediately. I smiled at the irony. Knowledge nugget number 2. In most states, including Texas, an HOA cannot restrict access to publicly dedicated easements, roads, or rights-of-way, even if maintained by the association. Any such restriction is legally void. The next morning, I met Leonard again. He'd brought coffee and a new binder labeled Asset Paths. "You ready for a twist?" he asked. "Your subdivision's retention pond, the one they keep fencing off? It's technically a city drainage easement. If you buy the maintenance contract through a holding LLC, you gain inspection rights to every adjoining property line, including the HOA office." I stared at him. "You mean I can legally access their property?" He smiled. "With the right paperwork, yes, and they'll never see it coming." Leonard's plan sat in my mind like a live wire. I couldn't stop picturing that fenced-off retention pond, brown water, cattails, a no trespassing sign half buried in mud. If that really was city easement land, the HOA had been bluffing for years. And if the drainage maintenance contract was up for renewal, I could legally step inside. Their territory. We built an LLC overnight. Pinecrest Maintenance Partners. Leonard handled filings. I signed as managing member. Cost me $350 for registration, another $42 for the DBA at the county clerk's window. By the next Thursday, the city accepted our low bid for the retention pond upkeep, $1,280 a year. I printed the executed contract, put it in a binder labeled Leverage. I didn't tell a soul. That same week, the HOA's newsletter dropped in every mailbox, full of what Ron called new enforcement initiatives. Reading it was like flipping through satire, paint code inspections, patio measurements, drone safety checks. They'd even announced a security appreciation picnic. I circled the date, May 6th, because a picnic meant cameras, residents, and a stage. Rosa stopped by with her grandson. He handed me a drawing of a big badge labeled Sheriff Mark, complete with stick figure HOA guards running away. I laughed, but she saw my hesitation. "You're making a lot of enemies, mijo," she said softly. "Just make sure you finish what you start." That night, I walked the perimeter of the retention pond, flashlights sweeping the weeds. A pair of HOA guards stopped their golf cart 50 feet away, watching. I waved. They didn't wave back. I spent the next weekend cataloging every HOA expenditure that touched that pond. Their own financials listed a $4,200 security perimeter maintenance fee, double what the city paid me to maintain it. I printed that page too. Every clue built toward something big. Late Sunday, Leonard called. "How's your patients?" "Wearing thin." "Good," he said. "You'll need some. Give them enough rope to host that picnic." I did. By Tuesday, new citations arrived, $250 for improper receptacle placement and $75 for garage door discoloration. I photographed everything, measured distances, and logged humidity readings, because under the selective enforcement doctrine, evidence of arbitrary treatment kills their defense faster than any lawyer could. Knowledge nugget number 3. In HOA disputes, selective enforcement means if rules are not applied uniformly, all related fines become unenforceable. Courts call it void by inequity. That Thursday, I ran into Ron at the coffee shop by the post office. He smiled that politician smile. "Still fighting City Hall, Mark?" I stirred my coffee. "No, just cleaning up your pond." He frowned. "Excuse me?" "City signed a new maintenance contract with my company." He went pale, the way people do when they realize their monopoly has cracks. "You're bluffing. Check the county procurement portal," I said. "Line 47. Then I left him standing there, cup half raised. 2 hours later, I saw a white truck idling by the pond. Same guards, filming me on their phones. I waved again, and this time they sped off. I knew what would come next. Retaliation dressed as regulation. I didn't have to wait long. By Friday, a notice claimed I owed $3,600 in escalating fines and threatened lien foreclosure within 30 days. I could almost smell the toner through the envelope. Rosa knocked on my door that evening, tears in her eyes. "They told me if I talk to you again, they'll suspend my garden access." I sighed. "That's witness tampering, if this were a courtroom." "Is it?" she asked. "Not yet," I said, "but soon." For the next week, I let them pile it on. Citations for grass height, mailbox dust, even unapproved exterior electrical outlet, which was just my Christmas plug box. Each notice I documented, scanned, time-stamped, and stored. Then came the HOA meeting agenda for May 6th, Community Safety Enforcement Review. All residents welcome. That was my opening. I spent the next 3 nights preparing presentation boards, 1 per binder, unauthorized fines, unlicensed security, conflict expenditures, and public easement rights. I bought new ink cartridges, double-checked every statute. On May 5th, the night before the picnic, I stood in my driveway, flipping through the stack. My daughter came out with her backpack, asked, "Daddy, are they still mad at you?" I smiled. "Probably, but we're going to make them play fair." She nodded, solemn like her mother. "Can I come tomorrow?" "Not this one," I said softly. "Next one, when it's over." The moon hung low, silver on the pond's surface. Somewhere across the street, a golf cart engine coughed to life. By dawn, I'd already loaded the presentation boards into my truck bed, wrapped in plastic against the forecast drizzle. The air smelled like wet cedar and diesel, May rain brewing. Around noon, I drove past the community park where the Security Appreciation picnic banners were going up. Ron stood near the gazebo, pointing at tables like a general before battle. At 6:45 p.m., I walked in carrying the boards under one arm and the contract folder under the other. The guards didn't stop me this time. They were too busy handing out wristbands. Residents milled around under string lights, music from a Bluetooth speaker filling the gaps. The HOA table was centered in front of the gazebo with Ron, Margaret, and 2 board members behind microphones. When the rain started, light, steady, everyone shifted under the pavilion. Ron tapped the mic. "We're here to celebrate community safety and announce some exciting new enforcement tools." His tone carried that smug rhythm of someone sure the crowd belonged to him. He lifted a laminated sheet. "We've partnered with HOA Security LLC for extended patrol coverage, including the retention pond area and all adjacent access points. For transparency, all operations are—" That's when I stepped forward. Licensed under the state or imaginary again? A murmur rippled through the crowd. Ron's jaw tightened. Mr. Danner, this isn't your platform. I unrolled my first board. State license verification, none found. Underneath it, the printed DPS page with their null record. If you're going to spend our fees on unlicensed guards, you might want to warn the insurer first. They're listed as bonded through Safe Shield Mutual, Policy 8721B. I called. That policy was canceled 6 months ago. Margaret blinked fast, whispering to the treasurer. Ron forced a smile. These are baseless claims. I opened the second board, HOA Financial Summary. Page 7. Security Perimeter Maintenance, $4,200. Then I held up the city contract. Meanwhile, the city pays $1,282 for the entire pond. Guess who's now the contractor? Pinecrest Maintenance Partners. That's me. The sound of rain intensified, like applause. People shifted closer. Ron leaned toward the mic, voice sharp. You can't just buy city contracts to invade HOA property. Not invade, I said. Maintain. The pond is city easement land. That fence you installed? Illegal obstruction. A hush fell as I unfolded a single-page map stamped with the city seal. Public right-of-way, section 14.08. Anyone maintaining drainage has inspection access up to 15 feet beyond that line, including the HOA office lot. You built your fence 6 feet inside it. The treasurer whispered something. Margaret's face went white. A uniformed man at the back of the crowd stepped forward. Deputy Hawkins, Denton County Sheriff's Department. I'd invited him the day before, quietly, citing possible permit violations. Rain dripped off his hat brim. He's right, Hawkins said. Easement law grants inspection access. Looks like you've got a zoning issue here. The crowd murmured louder now. Not hostile, but energized, the way people sound when they realize the rules might not all belong to the powerful. Ron's voice cracked. This is harassment. No, I said, setting down the contract ender. This is compliance. That was the first time I felt the tide shift. The rest of the evening blurred. Residents asking questions, Ron trying to adjourn early, Margaret calling for calm. I stayed polite, factual, no shouting. When Hawkins confirmed that any future patrols on public easements without license could trigger citations, the guards packed up and drove off. Afterward, as people lingered under umbrellas, Rosa hugged me. You made them listen, she said. They finally looked small. Driving home, headlights catching raindrops like sparks, I felt both exhausted and wired. But I knew Ron wouldn't fold quietly. He'd lost face, and men like that double down before they crumble. Sure enough, the next morning, 3 new citations appeared on my door. Lawn encroachment, 2 inches over border, unauthorized recording equipment, failure to attend community event. That last one made me laugh out loud. I recorded each notice, scanned and uploaded them, then wrote a small sticky note for the binder. Retaliation pattern established. 72 hours documented. That night, Leonard called. You've rattled them. Let it breathe a few days. We're close to the first reversal. Define close, I said. He chuckled. When they think they've won, you'll already own the keys to their fence. By Friday, word spread through the neighborhood that the insurance carrier wanted an audit due to possible unlicensed activity. That's when the HOA emails began leaking. Residents forwarding me screenshots of Ron's frantic messages about potential exposure, containment, and external interference. At the end of one thread, I spotted the subject line that sealed my next move. Urgent. Renewal of general liability policy. Due May 30th. Proof of compliance required. If that policy lapsed, the HOA couldn't operate legally, and the insurer would need documentation from a licensed inspector verifying property integrity, which, thanks to the pond contract, could be me. Everything was aligning like clock gears. I just needed one last push. The weekend passed under a sky the color of damp paper. By Monday, the neighborhood hum felt different. People talking softer near the mailbox clusters. The HOA's usual swagger gone quiet. I pretended not to notice, spending the morning tightening screws on the fence line around the pond, clipboard in hand, wearing my city-issued maintenance badge. If anyone was watching, I wanted them to see what legitimacy looked like. At 9:12 a.m., my phone buzzed. Leonard again. You sitting down? Standing in mud, I said. Better. You've got a deadline coming. The HOA's insurer just emailed them. Proof of compliance by May 30th or policy suspension. I could almost hear him smiling through the static. Without insurance, the HOA board can't enforce liens or collect dues, he continued. They'd be legally frozen. You've got about 9 days to let them hang themselves. Then what? Then you give them their way out, on your terms. That night, Rosa brought over chili and news. Ron's sending around flyers saying you're under investigation by the sheriff's office. I sighed. That's creative. I guess he forgot the sheriff was at the picnic. She frowned. People are scared. They think if the HOA collapses, no one will maintain the pool or the lights. They will, I said, just not with fear as currency. She studied me for a moment. You remind me of my late husband. He used to say power's just a chair until someone sits down. Then it's time we rearrange the furniture, I said. 2 days later, another letter came. This one, a formal notice of intent to lien. Bold red header, all caps. It claimed arrears of $4,170, payable within 7 days, or foreclosure proceedings will commence. That was their mistake. Under Texas Property Code, Bar 2090094, any lien based on invalid fines is automatically void and exposes the filer to statutory damages. I printed the code section, Stap E, led it to the notice, and hand-delivered a copy to Ron's office with a quiet smile. Knowledge nugget number 4. Filing or threatening an unenforceable lien can constitute bad faith debt collection, triggering both state penalties and insurer scrutiny. By Thursday, a whisper chain ran through the cul-de-sac. The insurer had dispatched an auditor. I confirmed it when a man named Curtis Feld showed up at the pond with a clipboard and a polite wave. "You Mark Danner?" he asked. "Guilty." "Safe Shield Mutual," he said, flipping his badge. "We've had complaints about unlicensed activity, needed site verification. You wouldn't happen to have documentation on drainage maintenance or security access?" I handed him the binder. "Everything's dated and notarized." He flipped a few pages, nodding. "You're meticulous. You'd be surprised how often these boards forget the state exists." "Not anymore," I said. That evening, I sat on the porch, listening to crickets rise under the humidity. My daughter came out with her sketch pad. "Are they still mad?" she asked again. "Less mad," I said. "More nervous." She drew a small house with light beaming from the windows. "Then we're winning." Around 10:30, headlights swept across the driveway. An SUV idling too long, engine ticking. I stayed inside, lights off, camera rolling. When it pulled away, I zoomed in on the plates. HOA-owned vehicle. I logged the footage with time and date. The next morning, Leonard texted, "Hold steady. They'll push one last time before the collapse. Let them." Sure enough, Friday's email blast accused me of sabotaging community safety operations. Attached was a PDF of a board resolution proposing an emergency fee increase to cover unexpected legal exposure. The fine print demanded 51% resident approval within 3 days. I knew most people wouldn't even read it. They'd just check boxes out of fatigue. That night, I posted a short update. "Neighbors, if you receive the HOA's emergency fee ballot, know this. Any financial action without 60 days notice violates Section 2090051. Don't sign until you've read it. And if you're unsure, ask your county clerk." It wasn't a rally. It was education. But by morning, the board's inbox was flooded. Ron cornered me near the mail kiosk that afternoon, face flushed. "You're tearing this community apart." "No," I said evenly. "I'm just reading the rules you wrote." He stepped closer, voice low. "You think you're clever. But when this is over, people will blame you for every broken light and overgrown lawn." "Maybe," I said. "But at least those things can be fixed without fear." He stormed off. I watched him go, the summer air thick around us. 9 days left on their insurance clock, and I could already see the cracks widening. I didn't need to push harder. Gravity would do the rest. Still, a part of me felt the weight of what came next. Aaron would have told me to tread carefully, to leave room for grace. I hoped I'd find a way to do both. The following Monday felt like walking across a bridge made of paper, every step light but risky. The insurer's deadline ticked closer, and the HOA board still pretended everything was normal. I kept quiet, logging each move. At 7:15 that morning, I saw an email slip through the public listserv. Subject: Urgent. HOA Audit Coordination. It was from Margaret to Ron and the treasurer, but one resident accidentally copied me when forwarding minutes. The message read, "We need proof of a licensed inspection by 5/28, or Safe Shield will freeze our funds. Any options?" I knew what that meant. They were trapped. That evening, I drafted a formal letter under the letterhead of Pinecrest Maintenance Partners. It stated, "Pursuant to City Maintenance Contract number 40219 and easement rights under Denton. County Code 414.08. A full inspection will be conducted May 27th, 10 a.m., including the HOA office perimeter and drainage fence." I CC'd the city clerk, the insurer, and, deliberately, the sheriff's department. Once sent, I shut my laptop and sat in the quiet hum of the living room. My daughter was asleep. For a moment, I thought about Erin's voice telling me not to let anger be the only engine. I whispered, "Almost there, love." On May 27th, I arrived at the pond with a clipboard and a city inspector vest. Leonard met me at the gate, thermos of coffee in hand. "You sure you want to go through with this?" "Lawful access, Leonard. They can watch if they want." They did. Ron stood behind the fence, phone out, filming like a paparazzo. "You set 1 foot past that gate, you're trespassing," he barked. "Actually," Leonard said, unfolding the contract, "this gate's 6 feet inside a city easement. You're the trespasser." Deputy Hawkins pulled up in his cruiser right on time. "Gentlemen," he said evenly, "Mr. Danner's acting under municipal authorization. Let him work." Ron's phone trembled in his hand. "You're helping him harass us?" Hawkins shrugged. "I'm helping the law." That was reversal number 1. The secret leverage finally locked in plain view. I walked through the gate, clipboard in hand, and began the inspection while Leonard photographed everything. The sound of my boots on gravel echoed like punctuation marks. When I reached the corner post, I peeled back a piece of rotted wood. Underneath, rusted screws and evidence of neglected maintenance, all of which voided their insurance safety cert. I logged it, signed the form, and snapped the clipboard shut. Visual beat number 1. The moment the inspection seal stamped the report, a heavy, satisfying thunk that echoed across the fence line. When I turned back, Ron had vanished. That evening, Leonard uploaded the report to the insurer's portal. We didn't have to say a word. Within 24 hours, Safe Shield notified the HOA board. Coverage suspended pending compliance audit and leadership review. The emails started leaking again, board members accusing each other of breach of fiduciary duty and sabotage. I didn't need to intervene. The system was eating itself. Midweek, Margaret knocked on my door, eyes rimmed red. "Mark, I didn't sign up for this," she said. "Ron's talking about filing restraining orders against half the neighborhood. We've lost 3 vendors, and the bank froze our reserve account." "You could resign," I said softly, "or help fix it." She exhaled. "What do you want?" "Transparency," I said. "Public voting, term limits, record access. I'll draft it. You read it." That night I typed until dawn. The document was short, 2 pages titled Community Reform Framework, but every word carried the weight of months. Before sending it, I posted a quiet question to my channel. When an HOA crosses the line from order to oppression, what's the right remedy? Buy leverage quietly like I did, or take them straight to court? What would you do? The responses poured in, thousands debating ethics, strategy, and courage. Some called me a hero, others said I'd gone too far. I didn't answer. The discussion itself was the point. By Friday, the HOA announced an emergency open meeting to address the insurance suspension. I could feel the ending approaching, the final set piece. I printed one more copy of the reform framework and slid it into my briefcase beside the inspection report. As I locked the case, the porch light flickered across the polished latch. I whispered to Erin again, "Tomorrow, we finish this." The meeting was scheduled for 7 p.m. sharp at the community center, a low stucco building with a flickering fluorescent bulb over the entrance. By 6:30, the parking lot was packed. Lawn chairs, umbrellas, even a few local reporters who'd caught wind of the insurer's suspension. Rain clouds swirled like bruises above the roofline. I walked in car, eyeing only 2 things, my briefcase and a calm I'd fought hard to earn. Inside, residents filled every plastic chair, the air thick with damp cotton and nervous chatter. The board sat at a folding table, microphones crooked, papers spread like battlefield maps. Ron cleared his throat. "We'll come to order. I want to assure everyone this situation is temporary. We've been unfairly targeted by a small group of agitators." His eyes found me instantly. I waited for the murmurs to fade, then stood. "The insurer didn't suspend you because of agitators. They did it because your policies were unlicensed, your inspections faked, and your fence violates city code. I can prove each point." A ripple moved through the crowd. I set the briefcase on the floor, popped it open, and laid out the stamped inspection file. "This," I said, "is the official city verification, completed May 27th, signed by Deputy Hawkins, and filed with Safe Shield Mutual." Ron leaned into his mic. "That's inadmissible. You're not—" "Not what?" I said quietly. "A contractor? A citizen? You've forgotten those words still mean something." Margaret shifted uneasily. "Mark, what exactly are you asking for tonight?" "Simple," I said, sliding the second document across the table. "Adopt this reform framework in full. Term limits for officers, open voting procedures, a 30-day transparency period for all expenditures, and a community ethics committee. In exchange, I'll provide the compliance certification the insurer needs to reinstate coverage." Ron barked a laugh, hollow and sharp. "You think you can blackmail this board?" "No," I said. "I'm offering you a lawful out. The alternative is a full regulatory review. And trust me, once the county sees those unlicensed patrol invoices, they won't stop at paperwork." The room hummed with whispers. Someone near the back shouted, "Let him finish!" Ron slammed a gavel. "Well, this meeting is adjourned." Before he could finish, Deputy Hawkins stepped forward from the doorway, hat dripping with rain. "You'll want to keep that gavel down, Mr. Whittle. This meeting's on public record now. I'm here at the insurer's request to verify Mr. Danner's documentation. Everything he's saying checks out." That sentence hit like a gavel itself. The entire room seemed to exhale at once. Visual beat number 2, rain beating on Hawkins's badge as he sets it beside the microphone. A symbol of neutral authority, validating the moment. Ron's mouth opened and closed, his voice suddenly small. "You don't understand what this means." "Oh, I do," I said. "It means the law you've been quoting finally has to apply to you too." Margaret picked up the reform framework, eyes scanning fast. "If we pass this," she asked softly, "does the insurer come back?" "Yes," I said, "and so does trust." For a long beat, nobody moved. Then Margaret raised her hand. "I vote yes." One by one, hands lifted around the table. Even the treasurer, pale and sweating, finally nodded. Ron stayed frozen. Hawkins stepped forward. "Majority rules, Mr. Whittle. Best to sign while it still counts as voluntary." Ron looked at me with something between hatred and surrender, then signed his name at the bottom of the framework. The ink bled slightly in the humidity. And just like that, the room erupted. Applause, laughter, relief. Rosa hugged me so tightly I could smell rain and garden soil on her sleeves. Hawkins shook my hand. "Hell of a way to run a meeting," he said. I smiled. "Only fair if everyone gets a vote." Outside, thunder rolled as I carried the signed papers to my truck. The rain finally broke in earnest, warm, heavy drops washing the dust from the asphalt. I stood there for a minute, letting it soak through my shirt, every muscle in my shoulders unclenching. Behind me, the board members filed out, their voice low and uncertain. The dominoes were already falling. The insurer reinstating coverage under new governance. Residents planning a volunteer committee to repaint the playground. Whispers of Ron's resignation by morning. But I knew one more reversal remained. Something bigger than winning. Reform meant rebuilding, not revenge. I started the engine, headlights cutting through the rain, and thought of Aaron again. Tomorrow, I'd trade leverage for something lasting. By sunrise, the storm had scrubbed the sky clean. The air smelled of wet earth and cut grass, the kind of morning that makes every sound sharper. Birds, tires on asphalt, the distant hiss of sprinklers. I brewed coffee, sat at the kitchen table, and reread the reform framework one last time, My signature would finalize the transition, but I wanted to add one final clause before it became permanent. At 9:05 a.m., I drove to the city offices. The clerk, a kind woman named Eileen, recognized me instantly. "You're the guy who took on the Pinecrest HOA," she said, sliding the document across the counter. "Half the staff's been talking about that hearing." "Guess that's one way to make friends," I said. I added a paragraph beneath the Ethics Committee section. "All future board actions shall be published within 15 days of vote, accessible to all residents at no cost." Then I initialed and stamped the final page. Eileen notarized it with a satisfying click of the embosser. Outside, the sun broke through cloud remnants, scattering diamonds across the wet pavement. Rosa texted me a photo, kids playing near the reopened pond, the fence gate now unlocked. "Feels like a park again," she wrote. That evening, the HOA sent an official announcement to all residents. New governance charter adopted. Transparency community first. Ron's name was missing. I later learned he'd resigned, citing health reasons. Argret was interim president, promising open meetings and resident participation. The reform deal was complete. Reversal number 2. Leverage traded for structural change. That night, I stood on my porch, watching the streetlights flicker on one by one. My daughter sat beside me, bare feet on the railing. "So it's over?" she asked. "Almost," I said. "Now comes the boring part, making sure the rules stay honest." She smiled. "That's your favorite part." I laughed softly. She wasn't wrong. A week later, Safe Shield Mutual issued a press release confirming reinstated coverage and acknowledging corrective action ensuring lawful operations. Local news picked up the story, labeling it the HOA that reformed itself. The footage showed residents planting flowers near the pond, laughter echoing where there'd once been arguments. Visual beat number 3. A child dropping a shovel beside a new signpost reading Pinecrest Community Garden. Established 2025, sunlight glinting off the fresh paint. In the weeks that followed, I returned to routine inspections, though neighbors still waved or honked in thanks. One afternoon, Margaret stopped by with a manila folder. "Final audit report," she said. "Clean, for the first time in years." "Good," I said, handing her a mug of coffee. "Keep it that way." She hesitated before leaving. "You could run for the board now. People trust you." I smiled. "Trust isn't for owning, it's for keeping." She nodded. "Then keep watching us." I promised I would. As the sun dipped, I recorded the final lines for my channel. "If you believe I fought the right way, by paper, patience, and persistence, say a few words in the comments for your friend. Subscribe so you'll catch the next story before it starts. And if you know someone caught under an HOA that's forgotten who it serves, share this so they remember there's always a lawful path back to fairness. That part's on us." I paused, let the quiet fill in. Then, almost to myself, "They fined me for a light bulb. I gave them a brighter one." The camera's red dot blin. Head off. I turned to the window, watching my daughter chase fireflies across the lawn, her laughter rising through the twilight. The porch light glowed steady and soft, the same one they'd once called unauthorized. And for the first time in years, it felt like home.